Hi, my name is Deborah Kay, and this is my audition. I'm going to show you really quick what I look like full down mostly, although my feet will kind of be cut off. And these are my hands. And as far as my background experience goes, I started acting when I was 2. I have extensive experience, at least, in theater, musical theater. Also, I've done some on camera work. I've also spent time doing actual planned media interviews during my time as a journalist in the DC area. And I've also done like literal just stand up, on the spot interviews as well. And also have writing experience, movie production, theater production experience as well. Most of it is just basic training, but some of it's actual hands-on experience just based on my own journey in life. And singing as well. I do singing in my show, The Thought Project, just so you know, on YouTube, which launched in November 2022. So thank you so much for allowing me to audition. And I do not have an agent. It's very clear to understand I've never actually had one. And I've had a rich variety of creative experience as well in my career, working in healthcare for 5 years as well, and even during the pandemic. So I hope you'll seriously consider me for the show. And I'm going to go ahead and read it. And I'm going to use a timer so that I don't actually go over time wise. As far as my setup, I just tend to use backgrounds or backdrops that are basic and sort of germane to the topic. Like for my show, I have a different backdrop that I use, but I thought for this type of show and the content, this would be a much better background. More than 110 years ago, the so-called unsinkable Titanic sank to the bottom of the sea, taking with it many of its passengers. It's one of the world's most catastrophic maritime events outside of wartime, with more than 1,500 deaths. It's also a fascinating story, one that hooked a man by the name of James Cameron and lured him on for years until he finally decided to make one of cinema's greatest masterpieces. Think you already know everything about the story and movie of Titanic? Well, maybe not. Did you know that several dozen people were poisoned on the set during filming? Or that James Cameron has a seriously wild side? Or how about the fact that many of the characters seen in the film are actually based on real people? Or that this historical catastrophe could have actually been avoided? Sit down and buckle your seatbelts because today we're going to be talking about how James Cameron went about making a cinematographic masterpiece about the most well-known shipwreck of all time. We'd be remiss in starting this video with anything other than a bit of background on the true story of the Titanic, and we think you'd actually be pretty surprised to find out what really sunk this ship. It all started in 1907 when Titanic was built to compete with a few other luxury liners already out there like the Mauretania and the Lusitania, the latter of which would meet with a similarly tragic fate. Lord William James Peary, an associate at the shipbuilding company Harland and Wolff in Belfast, and Joseph Bruce Ismay, the head of the White Star Line maritime company, together decided to build a series of 3 luxury liners, the Olympic, the Britannic, and the Titanic, which would surpass all others in terms of comfort, safety, and elegance. And we have to say it was quite the competition. At the head of operations was Alexander Montgomery Carlyle, the director of shipbuilding. Remember that name, it's going to be key to our story. Because not long after construction of the 3 ships began, something happened which would change the course of their history. Carlyle retired. What may seem like a minor detail was in fact one of the things that led to the future catastrophe. But why did Carlyle retire so suddenly? His withdrawal was provoked by a meeting between Lord Peary, Ismay, and Carlyle, a meeting in which they debated the number of lifeboats to be available on the forthcoming ships. Carlyle, the architect, wanted 66 lifeboats on board, while others argued that the exceptional quality of the ship's watertight compartments made that number of lifeboats unnecessary. Carlyle, though, had his doubts. He insisted that anything constructed by humans could be completely unsinkable. In the end, though, the team rejected Carlyle's call for 66 lifeboats, sticking with just 20. 20 lifeboats for 2,000 ship occupants, which, yeah. Faced with the rejection of his concerns, Carlyle was understandably resigned. Construction of the ships wrapped up without Carlyle, and on paper, it was a great success. The Titanic was an exceptional ship. We'll give you a look at some of the photographs of its ballrooms and berths, which were truly epic. The Titanic offered comfort and luxury that were absolutely unrivaled at the time. The first-class facilities include a gym, smoking lounge, restaurant, cafe veranda, pool, Turkish baths, a reading room, and even covered walkway. It was a veritable floating paradise. Honestly, you put me there and I'm staying. D-Day arrived in April of 1912. The ship's maiden voyage was set for the 10th. She'd leave the port of Southampton and set out for New York. On board were some of the richest people on the planet, including Colonel Archibald Gracie and Archibald but Archibald was apparently a trendy name at the time, who served under President Theodore Roosevelt. There were also several important businessmen, but not everyone on board the ship was vastly wealthy. There were also hundreds of people immigrating from Great Britain, from Ireland, and elsewhere in Europe, all hoping to find a better life in the United States. Then I'm going to cut it right there because we're at 3 minutes and 44 seconds. But I just want to thank you for the audition, and I hope you will check out my current show on the YouTube channel at Deborah KC, The Thought Project, just so you know. Thank you.